We found out if 10 of us all retweeted our own tweet at the same time, then that tweet will be trending in San Francisco in a small area.
It's now completely algorithm driven. It has a lot less to do with how much of a follower you have or even your brand presence.
Is there a way to game the system though? So what if I just get like thousands of people I hire to watch this video all within the first 10 seconds? Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond Algorithms, the podcast.
Hi, I'm Jun. So first, a little bit self-introduction. I spent 2 decades in Silicon Valley, work on different technology-related items, mostly in machine learning, AI, and technology. Probably 10 years from pre-IPO Twitter to post-Elon Twitter, grow one of their business lines from virtually zero to $1 billion a year annual, and mainly the growth was driven by a combination of technology and AI and the algorithms, and a lot of operational side and business growth strategies. And nowadays, with AI and machine learning and large language models taking over the world, we feel we want to present a perspective from a technologist perspective, but talk about topics that's beyond the algorithms. The other things that's on top of or separate from algorithms that can help the business grow. Frost, anything to add?
Yeah, that's exactly what June was saying. I'm Frost, in the opposite of June, who was selling billions of dollars of ads to marketers, actually help marketers, and I myself have bought like billions of dollars of ads throughout the time, and have seen a lot of changes in machine learning, AI technologies. And one thing actually always stays true is like a strategic framework that goes through that I feel is the most important thing for marketing practices that's beyond algorithms. And that's why we decided to start these discussions together. And today we'll talk about TikTok. Is TikTok really good for long-term marketing, or it is not so good for you? We'll start from there, especially from June, who has been actually selling really traffic-focused ads throughout his career. June, what is your take on TikTok?
I think people gravitate towards TikTok for good reasons. It has a lot of traffic. You can go viral. On the opposite side, it's very difficult to sort of establish an audience, especially for a smaller brand just starting up. It's usually perceived as a gold mine for marketers. But I feel, honestly, it's more of a lottery ticket of some sort. Like, if you look at every single lottery draw, there will be winners, and then maybe not guaranteed a jackpot winners, but there will be winners. But as participant, it may or may not work for you depending on your goal. But TikTok definitely has made a lot of brands. But I feel if you want to build a brand, build an audience on TikTok, it is a hit or miss kind of strategy and may not be as sustainable as other people thought.
That's interesting. So June, when you use the word lottery, you're basically saying the AI recommendation engine that TikTok is most proud of is completely unpredictable in a way to the brands. That's why it feels like a lottery, almost like gambling when they are investing time and energy and all these resources into making TikTok work for them.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like social media has evolved over the years, and in the very, very beginning, in the Facebook's era, you know all your friends, you build connections with your family and classmates and co-workers, LinkedIn and so on. And then the content you see is from your immediate network. And then as businesses, as brands, you build that connection with your customers, with your partners, and then you grow that. And then from a content discovery perspective, you discover the content from your people who you know or brand you trust and so on. And then gradually but steadily over the past 10, 15 years, and then definitely more featured as or resulted in the TikTok version of AI recommendation engine is now completely algorithm driven. It has a lot less to do with how much of a follower you have or even your brand presence, is almost purely based on content. And then so a lot of people can easily not easily, but like if you don't have a lot of following, but you have the content that people want to see, the algorithm is more likely to discover that for you, and then distribute across a wider stage of audience. And that's why a lot of brand and businesses want to be playing this game, because playing the Facebook, Instagram game is a lot harder these days if you don't already have a large following. And then, like, on Instagram, you often see people complaining about, like, someone else stole my content, and then made it viral and made it big. I was the original author, and the platform in the original generation, again, mainly the Facebook and Instagram, are sort of penalizing people who don't have a large following. So it's harder for newer brands, newer businesses to sort of break through that, versus TikTok and or even these days with like YouTube Shorts and I don't know, Twitter to some extent, now give you ability to quickly go viral without even people like repost your posts or retweet your tweet. The content itself can win by merit or virality. And that's sort of how TikTok is differentiated, but it certainly creates some problems for long-term sustainability for a brand, because in this particular case, the lottery ticket analogy goes both ways, right? You can win it big without any prior establishment or large follower count or whatever. On the other hand, even if you do have a large following in terms of like a number of followers and people who technically are on your sort of follower base, there is no guarantee that they're actually going to see your content without the algorithm sort of interfere between in the middle, and then the algorithm sort of serve as a filter to find the right combination of follower relationship and the content virality. And more recently, definitely more heavy weight is placed on the content itself. So although you can go viral, but you don't necessarily own the audience, which create a long-term challenge for brands and businesses.
Yeah, so Jill, as you were saying, the AI algorithm recommendations basically focus purely on engagement data, like how many people watched it, how many people rewatched it, what's the completion rate of people actually finish those videos. Is there a way to game the system though? So what if I just get like thousands of people I hired to watch this video all within the first 10 seconds when it was published? How did the platform anti-game these kind of mechanisms, right? Because it's much harder to gain hundreds of thousands of people to follow me, and all these are not bot users, versus I just get tons of people watching me and I pay them maybe like 10 cents each. I can probably convince people to do that. So how does TikTok come back that, or it's actually still a fair play for me to get the system that way?
It's number one, it's a gray area. I certainly don't recommend doing it. Number two, I think honestly it probably worked in the beginning, but it's also like from a user behavior perspective, it's actually quite easy to detect this sort of I don't know, call it spam, call it gaming the system, call it hack the system. From a machine learning perspective, it's a textbook classification algorithm. You can easily identify people's intent from, like, you got paid to sort of watch this video or click on this, versus you truly have an intent, especially if it is out of your interest graph. But I would say some sort of a cold start is always helpful, and that's why a core following is important, right? If you have a way to reach your customer, if you have a website, if you have another platform, and if you buy ads on Super Bowl, if you're at that stage of playing that game, then of course there's going to be more organic content parallel to your specific post on platforms like TikTok. It's a gray area with many shades. I would say definitely if you have a way to convince real customers, real users to sort of look at the content in the beginning, you do gain an advantage, especially in the early stage of the post.
Yeah, I mentioned that because in the early days of WhatsApp, Twitter, that was very, very early in like 2010, 2011. We found out if 10 of us all retweeted our own tweet at the same time, then that tweet will be trending in San Francisco in a small area. So I was wondering if we can do the same thing for TikTok, since it doesn't really care about the following base at all. But that brings to the next question. If everything, like you said, is by pure engagement, then over time, it sounds like a horrible deal for all these brands, because every time they start anew, right?
Yeah, I love how you put it. I think this is the double-edged sword. So on the one hand, it's wild that someone with 0 followers can outform an established brand overnight on the platform like TikTok, because you happen to hit the right chord with the audience, and the algorithm discovered you early on and then spread it across. You can have overnight sensation and have a viral TikTok post. On the other hand, you don't own that audience at all. Yeah, you may actually earn some followers, but as we just talked about, the followers doesn't really mean much, because there's no guarantee that your followers actually see your posted content. And then later on, like over time, as you say, you are still trying to get that high, right? You're always trying to get that virality, and if you don't have that, then you're always going to be struggling, even though you may have over time built a larger following base. And that is really the challenge of a platform like TikTok. They are primarily a platform that's not sustainable long term compared to, I would call, traditional platforms where you build some following over time. But these days it's all about the content virality itself. So over a longer period of time, it's not TikTok's machine learning model is really great for content discovery, but terrible for a predictable marketing ROI.
Yeah, Jun, you also touch on a very important part about virality and timing, because even if I created a video that's already super popular, let's say it gets 20 million, 30 million views, but because the algorithm cares so much about the engagement over time, the time decay punishment would make it completely irrelevant and totally not viewed by anybody in just a week. So
Oh, yeah.
even if I created something super amazing, the beauty fades way too fast.
Yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on. I wish we can show the time decay curve. I think, like, again, if we use like Facebook posts or Instagram, especially if you have like pinned posts there, you can see the number of impressions or how many people seeing your posts decay over a longer period of time, and you have a very slow decay, relatively speaking. And then if you have what's called evergreen content, if you have things that's about your introducing your brand and so on, like whatever investment you've made in creating that really eye-catching video or image or text, it will always be there and keep generating value, keep monetized. Social media has evolved quite a lot in the past decade. If you look at like how skewed that the distribution of the number of impressions, number of people see your post, it keep getting shrinked further and further and further. So nowadays, if you post the content and don't generate enough impression in the first, I don't know what's the most up-to-date numbers, but in the first hour-ish, I'm probably exaggerating, then the content is dead in the water. But even if you made it viral in the first day or two, it's still very quickly decayed, because the next big thing is happening. The next trending meme is catching everyone's attention, and people don't come back to you.
Well, basically the time decay graph of TikTok, or like Twitter, we call it X now, is a cliff. So even more than, wow, it has been already 14 years when I wrote the algorithms for picking up the top trends for Twitter, when you're like typing a hashtag and recommendations for like what you should talk about, what you should search. We rebuild the index every 10 minutes. So I cannot believe like it's any slower nowadays in any platforms, right? So if you don't get any attention within the first really 10 minutes, it's really hard to gain traction from there. And even you have gained traction, the next day after the huge time decay algorithm like punish on your score, you just don't show up anymore because it's no longer relevant. So if we were looking at that, how do we really like use this sword accurately by getting all the advantages, but like not getting beaten?
I want to actually double click on this sort of time decay, because I think there's a lot we can talk about, maybe a much bigger topic, but it's sort of the misalignment of incentives, right? The platforms, I think it's great you mentioned like Twitter in the 2013 era. Back then, when Twitter was a much smaller platform, and then 10 tweets can trend in a location, it is so much easier for brands, individuals, celebrities to sort of break through the noise, because you just have to have some sort of early sign of successes, and then you can just make it big on that platform. And then that's why you always have like new platforms replacing old ones as the old ones become harder and harder. Again, Facebook as a primary example these days. So TikTok discovered this, and they want to be the last platform, the last platform. So instead of making it too big, and then the establishment and the newer user can only go to the newer platform to sort of go big, they are heavily favoring the content discovery side of the recommendation engine. And then it doesn't really matter whether you have big following, you are the establishment. They only care about the content itself. So to some extent, it worked out great for them, because newer users are by default want to go to TikTok to sort of trying to make it big, trying to win that lottery ticket, and then try to sort of pray to God that I got lucky this time, that someone or enough people recognize my post as being have value to go viral. That is the sort of this misaligned interest. The platform want to optimize for engagement and content discovery. As businesses, as people who want to advertise or market our brand out there, we want to have more evergreen content. We want to have better ROI, but we also cannot afford to not play the TikTok game. If anyone figure out how to repeatedly create viral content on TikTok, like that's a billion-dollar business right there. So we won't get there, but I would say don't build your whole business on one platform. And we talk a lot about TikTok, but the same thing apply to almost any other platforms. And then because what we just talked about, TikTok as as a great platform for content discovery, for hitting it one big viral thing, and maybe the next time it'll come in 6 months, who knows. It's not very predictable, it's not very consistent, it's not very sustainable, but it gives you the possibility of accessing a much larger audience. And so you cannot afford to not play that game. But I would say as businesses, as marketers, we should not be rely on TikTok as a main channel for the business, or especially not the main acquisition channel for the business. And we should be thinking more broadly about a multi-platform, multi-channel model, so that different channels, different platforms play their own roles that you're uniquely good at. I wonder, Frost, if you can talk a little bit more about what are the roles different platforms should be playing, and as someone who manages hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars of budget, how should we be thinking about the allocation for big brands, or for smaller guys who just started, who cannot afford to go on different platforms to learn the different tricks of the different platforms? How should they start building this multi-channel strategy?
So I think you touch upon a very important part where you mentioned both X and TikTok. They are like really more like a top of the funnel play. You get a lot of eyeballs, you get a lot of traffic, even when you are successful, right? But because there are like viral content, they kind of distributed, not so focused on your potential target audience. It's not really a conversion play. So it's based on your top of the funnel and testing out your creative strategy. And then you retarget these people, finding who is interested and who might actually eventually convert using a more direct target channel, such as Google, Facebook, you name it, right? And when you are a small business, maybe it's just way too much to do all these channels, because it takes time and efforts. And in that case, I would say the good part is all these platforms, they kind of just copy each other when things go well. So I found it's just super easy that you can just re-upload your TikTok videos to YouTube Shorts. That exactly the same algorithms, exactly the same format, same as Instagram Stories, Instagram Reels. So I find it's not a lot of extra efforts if you just really try to test out how your content works the best. In terms of marketing dollars, you just really try to say the KPI, what is for traffic and what is for conversion, what is for long-term brand loyalty and real connections with customers out there. And that goes to another part when we are talking about building a portfolio that Junior has been always an expert on the data science side. When we actually use all these platforms, we get users from these platforms at all times. How do we decide which platform actually bring us the business?
I would say like there are different almost like personalities from different platforms, different channels. As you mentioned, I really like how you said, because platforms like TikTok and maybe Twitter to some less extent have a lot of traffic, and you can gain a lot of attention from maybe people that you don't even know, who potentially are interested in your content, it's a really good place to sort of experiment and then try to find out where are the niche audiences for a smaller brand to sort of target. You may make some assumptions on, I want to target 18 to 25 urban female for this, and it turns out, a very different group of people, the going middle-aged male in rural middle of America. So you don't know. I think the platforms like TikTok are really great at sort of doing that kind of a discovery or segmentation study, especially as you have more traffic from like semi-random users coming to your online store or coming to your homepage. So you will need different platforms and probably some more investment in marketing attribution and tools to sort of figure all that out. But you need to have, in oversimplification, some sort of, as Frost, you mentioned, the upper funnel strategy, the top of funnel strategy to generate traffic, and you have to have like a lower funnel strategy to actually track conversion. And at minimum, you will have a very clearly stated approaches on how do we generate more traffic, how do we generate more leads, conversations, and how do we generate more sort of tangible conversions or actions that is relevant for our business.
Yeah. So to answer the original question, how we started this podcast today was, is TikTok really good for your long-term marketing? I think the takeaway for me is if you only rely on it, then it's a bad decision. But if you completely don't have it at all, it's also a bad decision, because diversification is the only way to survive. When all the platforms change their algorithms all the time, and you don't really know when you're going to be squeezed out, and your users also move between the platforms all the time. But June, can you just have like one quick takeaway? I know it's a very big topic, but how should we use TikTok to make sure it's effective?
In the beginning, we said like TikTok is almost like a lottery system. You should be planning for what happens when you win the lottery. Like what happens when you have something that goes viral, how much it takes for you to actually capitalize on winning that lottery ticket. So I think that's probably a more important part than like what is the magic formula to actually go be successful on TikTok. And then of course to sort of wrap that up, you don't want to be, most businesses should not be relying on one platform as their main channel.
Yeah, absolutely. And also to have a holistic tracking for the entire funnel, so we know what each platform is actually contributing to your marketing strategies. And so you can shift your strategies accordingly.
That is, to the point of our title, Beyond Algorithms. The one thing that is certainly critical that's beyond algorithm is, in order for you to have an algorithm, have AI, you have to have data. So tracking and the tools, whatever is necessary for you to know what's going on, then you can do the analysis, then you can build the algorithms and so on.
Well, I think that kind of wrap up for our discussion today, because the next big topic may take a lot more time to talk about how AI and machine learning is reshaping how we target ads and how do we calculate the ROI and attributions.
We're also interested in hearing if any of the listeners have specific ideas or questions or things that they're curious about. Feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, that'll be the most fun. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.